and the Browns. Also be taking a look around the college landscape, both in the gridiron and the hardwood. Kentucky losing last night as the number one. Ouch. And as well, all 7 NBA games that are on the slate tonight. And to help us preview all of these games, we have sports analytics expert Ed Egros joining us from Dallas, feeling the sting steel of that Vikings victory over the Cowboys, Ed.
Yeah, just a little bit. And the coaching decisions at that final drive for the Cowboys, yuck.
You can check out Ed's podcast. It's called Hazard Play. New episodes are released every Thursday on iTunes and the Vocal app, so check that out tomorrow. And don't remember to download the free FanDuel Sportsbook app right now, and you can see all the lines that we're going to be talking about on this show today. You can place your bets in real time on the app. Just remember to sign up for your account using the promo code MOREWAYS25, and you're going to get a free risk-free bet up to $500 insight credit, plus an additional $25 free bet. So sign up for that FanDuel Sportsbook account right now. All right, Mark, let's get into it with our Thursday night football matchup. Talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers with that revamped steel curtain defense. They have looked great, but they're going to the dog pound. Not going to be easy to take on the Browns, who are coming off a very emotional late game win against the Bills. Pittsburgh's been red hot of late, winning 4 straight. Remember how bad they started? They got blown out by the Patriots to start the season. But the defense has been the catalyst, giving up just 17 points a game. So, Mark, the Browns are the favorite, though, in this one at home, laying just under a field goal. The line's 2.5. What are we going to do here?
Well, first, I should probably pull my foot out of my mouth because I did not believe in that Steelers defense. In
That's
fact,
right. You like the Rams.
I had the Rams this past weekend. Hey, blind squirrel finds out every now and then you get one wrong. But if you go to the Cleveland Browns side of this equation, how can you ever put stock or believe, Dave, in a team that had 8 downs from the opponent's 2-yard line and had 0 points out of that? That's right. 8 times they had a play from the 2-yard line of the Bills and got nothing out of it. So it's hard to believe in the Browns for this one, let alone a team at home. They have been awful as a favorite in games as well. So I like that defense for the Steelers. I think Mason Rudolph is getting healthier, and James Conner rumored to be coming back, and the run game will certainly have a boost from that. I'll take the Steelers and the points in this one.
Mike Tomlin saying that he's confident that he will be ready to go on Thursday. Ed, the Steelers have won 3 straight on Thursday night. We know how good they are on Monday night. So in these primetime games, they step it up. They've won those 3 Thursday night games by an average of 25 points. So do you see this trend continuing?
I actually do, and I think we need to really take Mike Tomlin seriously as one of the great coaches in all of football. He has done really, really well with a backup quarterback, and not a lot of head coaches can really say that. Ben Roethlisberger has only started 16 games in a season 4 times out of 16 years. So in a game where a backup quarterback has started, Mike Tomlin is 15-10. My goodness, he deserves to be in Pittsburgh for as long as he's been there, for creating the infrastructure for someone like Mason Rudolph to succeed. So it's not always efficient in terms of how the offense is run, but boy, they do win football games, and it's enough for the Steelers to cover on the road.
All right, let me rephrase that or make that question a little more narrow. Do you think the trend of winning by 25 points continues, or are they just going to win by 5 or 2?
Yeah, it's going to be more like 3 or 5 or something like that, because I think this is going to be a defensive kind of game, which is a wonderful segue, Dave, to the over-under total, if you don't mind me saying so. That's what makes you a pro's pro there, Weaver. Baker Mayfield, 0 points, has him as about an average quarterback. Mason Rudolph a little bit lower, and so I don't see either team, either quarterback scoring a lot of points. So it's probably going to be like a 20-17 kind of game here.
It's funny because last week, Mark, you and Ed were on your best bets to go over and under. The Browns were involved. You were thinking over against the Bills. Ed was thinking under, and now the Browns are still kind of that common denominator here. So what do you say? The total, by the way, is exactly at 40 points.
I think that's a low total. I know Ed likes the under in this one.
Do that again?
But I think in this one, I think there's enough talent, especially in a national spotlight, when you look at what weapons are there for the Cleveland Browns. Odell Beckham getting going, Jarvis Landry, as well as Nick Chubb running the ball in the backfield. I just have a feeling that Baker Mayfield is going to have some success in this game, despite the fact that Pittsburgh, I think, does win the game in the end. So I actually like the over in this game. I think 40 points is a low total for both of these teams. Again, you bring James Conner back into the fold. I think he will give a boost to the offense for the Steelers. So right at about 40. Hey, Ed just said, what do you say, 20-17. So that puts you right at 37 points, if my San Diego State math is correct. And I just think it goes a little bit higher than that. We're going to talk about some props in a little bit. I like over 40 points in this game. I
saw you wore your SDSU sweatshirt coming in this morning, so you were representing your math is straight on right there.
Aztecs.
All right, we talked about the spread. We talked about the total. Now it's time to talk about, as you mentioned, some prop bets on this. So we're going to take a look at 4 different props that you can bet right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Ed, we're going to start with you. Total touchdowns in this game. The number is 4. The over minus 140. The under is plus 116.
Well, first off, the Aztecs invented math, Rogo, so that's good there. I have a 20-17 final here, which means each team scores twice, so I'm right at 4. So, Weaver, is it possible that I can push here?
You would just be getting your money back on that one. Mark, what do you think? Because even though you think it's going to go over 40, doesn't necessarily mean that all has to come from touchdowns. You could get tons of field goals, but let's get your answer on that.
I'm with Ed on this one. I like about 4 touchdowns in this one, and we're going to talk field goals in just a little bit. So I think that's going to be the difference maker when all is said and done in this game. So since I like the over, if I'm betting this, I would lean towards going over 4 touchdowns because I think both teams will score at least twice, and then you at least have a push. You get one more in there, and you got to win.
I guess you're free rolling at that point. If you have the over, if you have the under, you're hoping to get your money back. All right, let's talk about the team to score first. The Steelers, even money, while the Browns, you have to lay minus 122. Mark, let's start with you on this one.
Listen, the Browns looked really good in their opening couple of drives against the Bills defense this past week. Yes, they weren't able to punch it in on the second one after they scored the Jarvis Landry touchdown to get things going. So I think playing at home here for the Browns, they're going to be hyped up to be playing in the national spotlight on that Thursday night football game. I expect them to possibly get the ball first. It's tough to bet this one here because it really does come down to who gets the ball first. But I like the game script here for Cleveland to get the ball, march down the field, and kick it through the uprights.
Who's scoring first, Ed?
Well, when it comes to scripted plays, first 15 plays of a game or so in terms of rushing and passing EPA, the Browns are actually a good bit better. It's when things aren't scripted, that's when Cleveland struggles and Pittsburgh figures it out. You shouldn't be surprised given how the head coaches sort of make their money, as it were. So I think the Browns score first here, and then Pittsburgh makes a comeback.
Well, the question to you now, as I'm coming back to you, does Pittsburgh make that comeback before halftime? Because the first half spread, Cleveland -1, both teams -110. So who's going to be in front at halftime?
Well, in a low-scoring game, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a first-half tie, which means the Steelers would cover at that +1. Keep in mind, Pittsburgh has placed a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which means even if Baker strikes first, he may not strike too many more times.
All right, Mark, you're our soccer guy, so we'll finish up with you on this prop. Field goals, close to soccer, at least you're kicking the ball. Over, under, 3.5 field goals. The over is -110. The under is -116. What do you think?
I'll take the over here. I think Ed and I will both agree that you could see this game being very tight between these two teams. There's going to be several drives that result in 3 instead of 7. So I think that assuming we're going to see 4 or 5 field goals in this game is a pretty safe bet. And by the way, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Ed Egros did have the Sounders winning MLS Cup, so he's a soccer guy too.
Ooh, LAFC going down. That was a rough one for Rogo. All right, more football game previews are coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll take a look at the biggest matchups of the weekend. What a week. I mean, this has to be the best slate of games that we've seen all year long. Good teams facing good teams and some bad teams facing some bad teams. We'll give you our game picks on all of those. And remember, you can check out the lines for those games and more on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app right now and even get free money to make your first bet. If you haven't signed up for your account yet, what are you waiting for? Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, sign up for an account, make sure you use the promo code MOREWAYS25, and then you'll get a risk-free bet up to $500 in site credit and an additional $25 free bet. So make sure to sign up for a FanDuel account using the promo code MOREWAYS25 and take advantage of this awesome promotion. And on top of making bets on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app, you can also play daily fantasy and win cash. For that, just log on to FanDuel.com. Check out the fantasy games available for the Steelers-Browns matchup on Thursday night. Just set your lineup, and you got a shot to win. It's as easy as that. And we're giving you the inside information right now because joining me is fantasy expert Jim Sonis, and he's done all the research so you don't have to. So, Jim, you're going to give us a player from each salary tier that we should get into our lineups. Who's on your list this week?
Yeah, I agree with you guys that the Steelers are probably in a good spot for this week, but from a fantasy perspective, the Browns are just so much more friendly for fantasy because the usage is more concentrated. So I like Baker Mayfield. It's been a bad year for him so far this year, but a lot of that is due to bad touchdown luck. He's had multiple touchdowns in only one game this year, and that happened to be last week, but they've significantly cut down on Baker's time to throw, which is good to get the ball out of his hand faster. That'll be a key this week. So Baker, I think, makes sense at 15.5. I also think Nick Chubb is in a good spot. We did see Kareem Hunt make his debut last week, but even in that, Nick Chubb's snap rate actually went up. He was around 60% the previous 2 games. He was at 80% last week, 20 carries and 4 targets, and he ran 27 routes in that game. So Nick Chubb is still a really good fantasy asset. As a home favorite, I think that he makes a lot of sense here. Also, Odell Beckham, just from a salary perspective, getting him at 11.5 in this game I think is really intriguing because, yes, they have cut down Baker's time to throw. That means fewer deep throws, but even in that time, Beckham is still getting 2 or 3 deep targets per game. He has a 25% target share in this 4-game sample. I think both he and Jarvis Landry are very good options, but Beckham's cheaper at 11.5, so I'm going to take him. As far as a value play on the Steelers side, I really do like Deontay Johnson. It was James Washington who had a long touchdown last week, but Johnson has had the more consistent role. He played 72% of the snaps last week, whereas Washington was at 50%. Johnson has at least 6 targets and 64 yards in 2 or 3 games since Rudolph came back. So I think Deontay Johnson at $8,500 really does make sense. And then also, I don't mind Vance McDonald at $7,500 as another cheap value play on the Steelers side.
All right, Jim, thanks. Always appreciate your research and insight. You can get more of Jim's information on his podcast. It's called the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, and is available every Monday and Thursday on the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Thanks, Jim. All right, you know what time of year it is. It's Wednesday. That means Wednesday night Maction. The MAC is in full swing, and there are 2 nationally televised games tonight that we're going to preview right now. Ed, let's start with Northern Illinois at Toledo. Northern Illinois is 3-6. They lost last week 48-10 and gave up 320 yards on the ground. Toledo's a perfect 5-0 at home and 6-3, and somehow this line is only Toledo minus 2.5. Northern Illinois, the defending champs from last year, they're kind of on their last leg here. I think if they win out and get a little bit of help, they can still get into the championship somehow. But, I mean, it just looks like at this point of the season, this line seems a little small. There must be something going on here.
Yeah, I actually think the line is right on the money, and I think it's in part because, yeah, Toledo does have the wins and the better record, but in terms of the advanced metrics, these teams are almost exactly the same. SP Plus rankings have these schools within 5 spots of each other. Passing yards per attempt, Toledo ranks 81st, Northern Illinois 78th. Overall strength of schedule, they're within 10 spots of each other. I'm expecting a really exciting game, and when it's this close, I like points. So give me Northern Illinois plus 2.5.
All right, going with the underdog. All right, let's head from Northern Ohio to Southern Ohio, where Bowling Green takes on Miami of Ohio. The Redhawks have won 3 straight and are in first place in the MAC East Division. Bowling Green just 3-6 on the year, but they've won 4 straight at Miami of Ohio, so that's a good thing. And look at this line here. Bowling Green is a 17.5-point underdog in this one, down to 17. That's a lot of points, Mark. Who do you like?
Yeah, as you mentioned, the line has moved. It actually was closer. It was up at 18 originally yesterday and now has moved down a whole point, which tells you some money is getting on Miami of Ohio. I just think this line, you were talking about small lines in the last game. I think this line is just a little bit too big, and I say that because statistically, if you look at the numbers between these two, and I know that's Ed's category, they're actually pretty close, and in fact, you could say Bowling Green has the better rushing attack at 164 yards a game. So again, I think the line is a little bit too high, so I would take Bowling Green here in the points, maybe taking a page from Ed's book in the last game as well. And if you look at it, I know Miami of Ohio has covered the last 3 times that these teams have played, but they've been much smaller numbers when these 2 teams have played. So I'll take Bowling Green plus the 17. All
right, we will be enjoying those 2 MAC games later on tonight. But now it's time to move from the college gridiron to the hardwood. The season is young, but we've got a top 25 matchup between number 10 Villanova on the road and number 16 Ohio State. This is an early season test for both teams. Nova's played just 1 game, and they beat Army by a whopping 40 points. That's more than a week ago. Ohio State's already played twice, and they're an undefeated 2-0 and a 2.5-point favorite. Mark, which side are you taking here?
I'm taking the lower seed, if you will, in Villanova here in this one. Both teams, yes, as you mentioned, have been able to rip through their opponent. Two wins for Ohio State, a win for Villanova. But the fact of the matter is in both of those wins for Ohio State against Cincinnati as well as against UMass, they had slow starts, and they also had periods where they did not score. I think it was even a 6-minute stretch where Ohio State did not score against UMass. So for me, when I look at this game, yes, it's a tough test. I'm going to go with Villanova plus the points here. I think they're the better team. They're very good defensively, but also missing in action is Andre Wesson, the older brother of Caleb Wesson, the two forwards. You won't have Wesson in this game, the senior forward. I think that makes a big difference for the Buckeyes, and that's why I'm on Villanova.
I'm always used to having Ed chime in on college football, but you like college basketball equally, Ed?
Absolutely. Love college basketball. I mean, the tournament is one of the great events in all of sports, and I think especially when it comes to this game, don't be surprised if these two teams both make the tournament and both get really, really good seeds. But as for this game itself, I agree. I also like Villanova here. General philosophy I have when it comes to college basketball is I tend not to like the slower paced teams, the teams that really hang their hat more on defense than offense. Ohio State does that a good bit more, and if they don't have Andre Wesson, that's going to make things even tougher in terms of finding where the offense is supposed to come from. But for Villanova, you don't have to worry about that. You know the offense is going to come from a number of different guys, most notably Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Remember that name. I think Villanova takes care of business.
All right, Ed, thanks. And from college hoops to the pros, let's rip through the biggest games on the schedule right now in the NBA tonight. We're going to start in Orlando, where the Magic started the season 2-2, but have now lost 5 of their last 6. Sixers beat Cleveland just last night, but just by 1 point. Philly's a 1-point favorite on the road in Orlando tonight. Ed, going to come back to you. Who do you like in this matchup?
Well, I'm not sure where the points are supposed to come for the Magic. Nikola Vucevic, leading scorer, Evan Fournier, solid shooter, but one of the more brutal offensive teams in all of the NBA. They do minimize mistakes in terms of turnover percentage, but the Sixers' effective field goal percentage and rebounding percentage, all led by Joel Embiid, I think that makes up the difference. I like the Sixers.
What do you think, Mark?
I like the Sixers as well. Yes, it was a narrow margin of victory against Cleveland at home last night, but the fact of the matter is, and I'll talk more about this later in the show, they had 3 brutal defeats on a West Coast road trip earlier in the year. I think they learned something from that, and you're getting it at a really small price and small number at just a point.
Back-to-backs are always tough, though, so that's probably why the line
is so
tight.
It's the NBA, Dave. Come on, they're used to that stuff.
Yeah, and they rest guys and load management,
True.
Not playing tonight, playing tomorrow night. It's tricky to really even know who's going to be on the floor when they do have the back-to-backs like that. But now let's go to Boston, and 2 teams having completely different starts to their season. The Wizards are in town, have won just 2 of their first 8 games. Boston is the best in the entire NBA, starting out 8-1. The Celtics are giving up 9 points in this one. That's the biggest spread of the night. Is that too big for you to think they'll cover, Mark?
Not at all. They're one of the top 5 defensive teams in the NBA right now, and despite the recent loss of Gordon Hayward to an injury, I think that the Celtics are still one of the premier teams, not just in the East, but in the entire NBA right now. And you mentioned the struggles for the Washington Wizards outside of the rookie Hachimura, and then you look at Bradley Beal. They don't have a ton else outside of that. That's the reason why they're 2-8 on the season so far. Plus, going to Boston to play is always a tough spot. The crowd is always behind the C's. I'll take the C's giving those points.
All right, let's move on. And in Houston, there's a big-time Western Conference showdown between the Clippers and the Rockets. Both teams, the same record, 7-3. The Clippers have won 4 out of 5 and will try to slow down the league's top-scoring offense. Houston's averaging more than 120 points a game. Ed, the Rockets are 2.5-point home favorite. I was looking something up stats-wise, and who are the assist leaders? Did you know that James Harden actually has more assists right now on average than Russell Westbrook? But to have both of those guys, that's why this offense is clicking so nicely. Can they cover?
Well, moving down to a point, I like Houston even more in this situation. And I think it's in large part because I think they're concentrating a little bit more on defense and maybe slowing the pace of play down a little bit than, say, what they did at the start of the season. You look at their top 4 defensive performances. The last 3 games were part of those top 4 defensive performances. And with the Clippers, it's so much more about load management at this time of the year, especially going against the Rockets, where they can certainly flip the switch and have a faster pace of play. Not much impetus for the Clippers to try and win this game. So much more for the Rockets in terms of trying to get all these guys meshing together. So I like Houston.
The Clippers have looked good at home. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to keep that pace up on the road throughout the season. What do you think?
I think they will keep that pace up on the road because basically they're a really good team and they're a very deep team. Right now they are also a healthy team. I agree with a lot of the points that Ed makes there, but I just think defensively the Rockets don't have a lot defensively, right? They love to play that high pace. They are the highest scoring team in the league. So I actually like the Clippers in this spot to surprise a lot of people.
All right, now to a battle of Northern and Southern California. The Warriors and the Lakers face off at Staples. Sounds weird to say this, but it's a battle of first versus worst in the West. But it's the Lakers at 8-2 and the Warriors at 2-9. Mark, the Warriors are just absolutely depleted and getting 9.5 points tonight. You know, you look at their 5 starters and you go, how can they keep it close?
Well, I think the reason why that isn't a double-digit number is because the Lakers played last night in Phoenix. Listen, I called the Warriors game earlier in the week when they got beat up by the Utah Jazz. They are a very bad team right now. You're looking at a guy like Pascal, Draymond Green, you know, those guys cannot carry this team right now. D'Angelo Russell, he knows how to score, but he's really on an island doing it all by himself. The Lakers, I think, it will be a slow start for them, but in the end, I cannot see them not winning this game by double digits. So in this situation, I'm going to take the Lakers. I think they're really starting to find their mojo. They're loving that they're first in the West right now. You got to go with the Lakers. And oh, how times have changed in the NBA. The Warriors are at the bottom.
The very bottom of the division. All right, so whether you like to bet on the NBA, college basketball, college football, or the NFL, it's all on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app. And don't forget to get a free $25 bet just by signing up. Here's how it works. You download the free FanDuel Sportsbook app, use the promo code MoreWays25, and on top of the free $25 bet, you'll also get a risk-free bet up to $500 in-site credit if you lose that first bet. So download the app, sign up for an account with the promo code MoreWays25, and then make your first $25 bet for free. Plenty more to come on FanDuel's More Ways to Win. We're breaking down the biggest Week 11 NFL games, and there are a lot, including the Patriots visiting the Eagles. Plus, there are some huge top 25 college matchups this weekend. We're giving out our best bets. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Woo! Right here. Oh.
Can you do that here?
Of course. Now I can bet the game on FanDuel Sportsbook anywhere in Pennsylvania. But is the pig allowed? You mean my service hog? As long as they rent her shoes.
FanDuel Sportsbook is now available everywhere in Pennsylvania. Join today and get a risk-free bet worth up to $500. Visit FanDuelSportsbook.com. FanDuel Sportsbook, more ways to win.
Sometimes a trip to the casino is not in the cards.
You have gas, there's tolls, there's traffic, there's parking. And what is a resort fee? I think everybody wants to know what a resort fee is. I'd rather just stay and play at home.
With Betfair Casino, you can play anywhere in New Jersey. No long drives, no hassle.
You just can't beat the convenience.
I've downloaded the app. It's fun. It's quick. I can play anywhere in New Jersey.
Playing on Betfair Casino, I save on tolls, I save on time. It's great.
With over 400 casino games, you could be playing your favorite games in 3 simple steps. Step 1. Sign up at betfaircasino.com and get $10 free for joining. Step 2. Make your first deposit and we'll match it up to $2,500. Step 3. Join the thousands in New Jersey playing for real money online.
It doesn't matter, how much we're betting. It's just the excitement of it. The adrenaline starts to flow.
Join the fun today at betfaircasino.com. Try it free.
Do you want to bet the next race and don't have a TVG account? Get the TVG mobile app and sign up. It's fun, easy, and it's TVG. I'll show you how it works. When you bet the horse that wins, you win money too. With the TVG app, select your horse, bet type, and wager amount. Place your bet and watch the race live. Download the app and sign up now, or go to TVG.com. Join now and get a risk-free bet up to $200. TVG, your best bet.
Here's a look inside the FanDuel Sportsbook at the Meadowlands. If you live in New Jersey or just visiting anywhere around the area, make sure you check it out. Go to the FanDuel Sportsbook and take advantage of the self-betting machines while enjoying watching the games on hundreds of TVs. Plus, there are shuttles that run back and forth from MetLife Stadium on game days, so that's also a great time to check it out. All right, welcome back to More Ways to Win. I'm Dave Weaver here with Mark Rogandino. More NFL game previews coming up. But as you make your bets, you have to keep in mind some of the players who are dealing with an injury. Joining us now is Dr. David Chow. He's the former head doctor for the Chargers, so he's in a unique position to talk about some of the injuries that we're seeing this season, and there have been a ton of them, haven't there? You can follow him on Twitter. His handle is @ProFootballDoc. Doc, thanks for joining us. Let's start with tomorrow's Steelers-Browns. Pittsburgh running back James Conner is now, looks like he's going to be finally playing after missing 2 games with a shoulder injury. Is that going to have an impact on him on the field?
It shouldn't. I think, we've all expected him to play before this. He hasn't. It didn't seem like a severe AC joint sprain. And even on the short week of rest, I think he's going to play and be effective.
Let's talk about your injury index for this game, just an overall matchup of who's healthier between the Steelers and the Browns, both offensively and defensively.
Well, on a short week, both teams are relatively healthy and coming into more health. James Conner obviously coming back. His fullback isn't there. And Juju Smith-Schuster is off the injury report with a toe issue. And then on the other side of the ball, Cleveland's big potential miss is Olivier Vernon, the D lineman, in terms of the run game.
All right, now let's talk about the worst team that we've seen this year. That's the Cincinnati Bengals and their star, A.J. Green. He was expected to return last week after he tore ligaments before the season started, but he suffered a setback. Will this week help him recover and finally get on the field?
I don't think so for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's saying he's needing to take care of himself and look good and be closer to 100%. Number two, I looked at some pregame warm-up video, rehab video, and it's on my Twitter timeline, and it's pretty clear he's still favoring the left ankle. He doesn't have full range of motion. He doesn't explode or land equally on the left foot, the left ankle, as the same as the right side. So I still think he's weeks away at this point in time.
All right, now let's talk about Detroit Lions quarterback Matt Stafford, who ended a streak of 136 straight starts with both a hip and a back issue. So he's now week to week. What can you tell us about his rehab and how soon he'll be able to get back on the field?
Yeah, he was second on the current Ironman streak only to Phillip Rivers. And he apparently has transverse process fractures, something he actually played through last year, different fractures, and this time decided to sit. They're very painful, but you don't have to wait for them to heal. Everyone hears back fractures and thinks, why isn't he on injured reserve? He's not going on injured reserve, and he'll return sooner than everyone thinks. For sure, he will be playing, assuming he doesn't get a new injury, on Thanksgiving Day for the Lions in the traditional game. But I think he beats that easily. There is a chance he plays this week and a likelihood he plays next week. There's a good chance he plays this week, but the Thanksgiving game is a lock.
All right, good to know. Let's talk about one other guy that, in my personal opinion, the way that Patrick Mahomes came back from that scary knee incident and had the game that he did last week, it's just mind-boggling. 2 things. Did he come back on schedule for you or maybe a little bit early? And 2, can you believe he performed that well?
Well, he came back right on schedule because we talked about when it happened on that Thursday, we said between 3 and 4 weeks. And this game was 3.5 weeks. And remember, his left high ankle sprain that had been bothering him all year and re-aggravated probably got healthier too. And what's amazing is he's so dynamic. There were times where you could be critical and say he wasn't 100%. Yet he still threw for 440-some yards, 3 touchdowns, triple-digit quarterback rating. And we're like dissecting his game a little bit, but he's just that elite. But he's still not 100%, and there still is some risk for redislocation. So fingers crossed there.
All right, thanks so much, Doc. Dr. Chow has a bunch of great info at ProFootballDoc.com. Make sure to check it out. And remember also to follow him on Twitter for more injury information. 160,000 plus followers, by the way. His handle is @ProFootballDoc. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
All right, so let's now take this information that we just got from Dr. Chow and tell me if this affects what you think is going to happen on Thursday night with the James Conner information. Let's start with you, Ed.
Well, I'm a firm believer that when it comes to the running game, the health of the offensive line matters more than, say, the running back himself. But James Conner will be utilized a good bit more in this passing game, and so his presence will certainly help Mason Rudolph move the ball a little bit. But again, throwing to running backs isn't necessarily the most efficient thing in the world. So in terms of the James Conner news, it doesn't impact me too much. But good for him that he's able to get back out there.
Which one of those, Mark, might have an effect on you? Maybe A.J. Green not coming back, even though he's practicing this week?
Actually, A.J. Green and Matt Stafford. We all know Matt Stafford has been a gamer, evident by the streak of 136 straight games as an Ironman quarterback in the NFL. But the fact is, I feel like Detroit already is out of the picture in that NFC North division right now. And so when I look at this, I would say, why does Matt Stafford want to come back? Jeff Driscoll was pretty decent in relief of him. No, it wasn't great, but you were playing a Bears team that can't score either. So I'm a little surprised that Stafford might have an opportunity to come back this week already.
All right, good stuff, and thanks to Dr. Shaw for that. But now it's time to take a look at the biggest games of the weekend. We're going to start with the rematch of the epic Super Bowl 52 game between the Patriots and the Eagles. New England travels to Philadelphia. Both teams coming off of their bye weeks, by the way. The Eagles have won 2 in a row. The Patriots lost to the Ravens in their last game, so that's recent in bettors' minds, Mark. The Eagles at home getting 3.5 points. Do you like the dog, or are the Patriots going to prove that they are for real even against a good team? Because they've had an easy schedule, you know that.
Well, raise your hand, Ed and Dave, if you heard this before. 2 weeks to prepare for a game against an opponent. Yes, I said that about the Rams and Sean McVay last week, but I feel like this week there is no way that Belichick, first of all, is losing 2 games in a row, and now that he's had extra time to prepare for Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles. And one other thing that I look at, Ed, and I can't wait to hear what you say about this game, is the fact that you know what the Patriots do. Short passing game, dissect the secondary of the opponent. The secondary of the Eagles is not very good. Tom Brady is going to have a big game in this one.
Yeah, by the way, Belichick and the Patriots 5-0 the last 5 years coming off of a bye week. But, hey, give Doug Peterson time, and I think he's going to know what to do against this Patriots offense. Ed, what do you think? This is such a great matchup.
Well, Mark, I think you make a great point in terms of the Patriots being able to move the ball. The Eagles should be able to move the ball as well. Yes, I know the Patriot passing D is pretty good, but when you can establish the run in certain pockets, at least do it efficiently, and then you have guys like Deshaun Jackson going over the top, and I think the Eagles can score as well. So first off, take the over in this game because I think both offenses will perform well. But also Carson Wentz and Tom Brady, this may be heresy to say this, but I think they're playing at roughly the same level right now. The Eagle has the advantage in total QBR. Brady is better when you bake in completion percentage over expected. Eagles are a little bit tricky because of their offensive injuries. It does skew the data a little bit. So in my mind, this may be something where I buy a point and then take the Patriots at -2.5.
I've, looked at the games that the Patriots have played on the road, 2 difficult ones. The Bills, they didn't cover, and the Ravens, they didn't cover. They're beating up on all these cupcakes. I think that it's going to be tough for them to win in Philadelphia. Give me the Eagles. All right, how about this quarterback matchup in Baltimore? Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson both burst onto the scene, and both of their teams are in first place right now. Just how good are these guys playing? At the FanDuel Sportsbook, Lamar Jackson is the second favorite to win the MVP behind Russell Wilson. And Deshaun Watson is right behind Jackson as the third choice to win MVP. So Watson's coming off of a bye week, but has thrown 5 touchdowns and 0 picks in his last 2 games. Lamar Jackson had a perfect quarterback rating last week against Cincinnati. His second perfect quarterback rating of the year. That's unheard of. I think he's only the second quarterback in the history of the NFL to do that. Mark, Houston is getting 6.5 points on the road. The Ravens are just so hot right now. Who do you like?
Well, it was closer to 6, right, Dave? But now we're down to 4. We're down to 4.5 here. But I still think, like the sharp money, I think you have to take the Texans in this situation. And I'll tell you why. Both teams love to get the run defense to slow things down, and their pass defense is just fairly average when you look at the numbers. I know Ed's the analytics guy, but they're middle of the road when it comes to their pass defense. So for me, then I look at which of these 2 guys do I like better in the passing game, Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson? I think that's a pretty easy answer. You take Deshaun Watson, and his ability to throw the ball is much better than that of Lamar Jackson. Jackson can sling it, but is not as good as Deshaun Watson and the weapons that he has in guys like Fuller coming back to health, DeAndre Hopkins. So I am going to take the points in this situation. I think you got to go to the Texans at +4.5. They're also coming off that bye, as you mentioned.
All right, Ed, you're going to lay the 4.5 and take the Ravens, or are you going to go with the dog?
So here's how I'm going to do this. First off, once again, I'm taking the over.
You're going to buy a point.
I'm not sure. I'm taking the over first off. Got to go there first because I'm not sure anybody stops Deshaun Watson or Lamar Jackson at this rate. Both in the top 9 in EPA per dropback and completion percentage over expected. I've looked at success rates for both offenses. Baltimore, obviously number 1 in run success rate. They're 10th in passing. When you look at Houston, they're 6th in rushing success rate and 2nd in passing success rate. So overall, Houston has a better dynamic offense than Baltimore. So guess what? I'm taking Houston outright. Moneyline money make.
Well, good
Dave,
luck on
let
that.
me tell you one other thing, too. In the last 14 times that the Ravens have been the favorite, they've only covered 3 times.
Really?
Yeah, so I think, again, you got to go with Houston, I think, in the points here.
All
It's
right.
going to be a great game. Game of the week, I think.
And one of those was against Miami when they won 59-10, I think. And for all of you who like to bet at our FanDuel Sportsbook at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, this one's for you. The Jets head to D.C., where they'll face an NFC East team for the 2nd straight week. Their 2 wins this year have been against the NFC East. The Redskins will start rookie quarterback Dwayne Haskins for the remainder of the season, and they're a 1-point favorite in this game. This is the game of the week, right, Mark?
I must have misread my notes here when I said Ravens and Texans was the game of the week.
Yeah.
No, I meant that for the Jets and the Washington Redskins.
It could be ugly.
Right? That's must-watch TV. Listen, since week 2 of the season, the Redskins have failed to even score 20 points. The only time that they got even close to that was 17 points in a 17-16 win against the Miami Dolphins. The Redskins are an awful team, and I think Haskins has not looked good in what we've seen in a small sample size so far this season. So I'm back on what we had last week. Let's go to the Jets here. I think Sam Darnold managed the game. A big show of Le'Veon Bell. Lots of carries, lots of screens for Le'Veon Bell. I'll take the Jets.
Ed, you and I, our upset special of the week last week was the Jets. I'm not as confident that they'll do it again this week. What do you think?
I'm just as confident as last week and this week. I think the Jets can beat up on half of the NFC East. Jets, yes, they're dead last in offensive BP. I get that. But Washington is 30th, and at least New York can make excuses in terms of Sam Darnold's health, LaShawn McCoy's inefficiencies. What can Washington say as an excuse as to why the offense hasn't been working out so far? I think Dwayne Haskins can be a solid quarterback in the National Football League. I just don't think he's ready right now. I have the Jets winning outright.
All right, so take all of that information and make a bet on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app, and we'll even give you a free $25 to place your first bet. Here's how to get the cash. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up for an account using the promo code MOREWAYS25. You'll get a risk-free bet up to $500 in-site credit and an additional $25 free bet. So make sure to sign up for a FanDuel account using the promo code MOREWAYS25. Now it's on to college football and a look at the lines for the biggest matchups of this weekend. And this weekend marks another one with a big matchup between 2 SEC schools ranked right now in the top 15. Mark, we're talking about number 12, Auburn, who has a tough home matchup against number 4, Georgia. Coming to town, Georgia's defense enters this game giving up just the 2nd fewest points per game in the entire country. Auburn freshman quarterback Bo Nix hasn't completed 42% of his passes in the Tigers' 3 biggest games of the year. So that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Auburn is getting 2.5 points at home. Which way are you going to go here?
I'm going to go with Georgia. Georgia still has an outside chance if they could really run the table to finish up the season. They still have an outside chance they could maybe make that top 4 and into the college football playoff. Both these teams love defense, right? So they love defense and they love to get the ground game going. So when I look at this game, while I would lean towards Georgia giving the 2.5 points in this situation, I think the even better play is to go at the under. Right now, under sitting at 40.5, over under at 40.5. I think you look at that total and you think both of these teams are going to try and control the clock, slow the pace down, really grind it out. Hey, when you get to this point in the season, the SEC is always big matchups at this point in the season. So I will take Georgia minus the 2.5, but my bigger play would probably be on the under.
Okay, so maybe they shut them down something like 20-10. You scoop both of them. Another top 15 matchup, but this one is in the Big 12. We're talking about the team leading the conference, who's actually a massive home dog this weekend, if you can believe that, Ed. Quarterback Jalen Hurts leads the 10th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners against the 13th-ranked Baylor Bears. Hurts tops the nation with 39 all-purpose touchdowns and will look to put an end to Baylor's 9-0 undefeated campaign. Baylor is getting 10 points at home, and they haven't lost all year. Who do you got?
Well, Oklahoma's had a much, much tougher strength of schedule than Baylor. Sooners have the 10th highest margin of victory in America. Baylor is 20th. So Oklahoma's playing tougher teams and beating them by bigger margins than Baylor. So that's good news for the Sooners. Predicted points added per game, Jalen Hurts is a good half a point better than Charlie Brewer. While both teams have struggled lately, I trust the offense that's still keeping up. The offense for Oklahoma is not struggling, so I have OU covering this 10-point spread.
On the road, -10. All right, Ed going with the Sooners. Now to the Big Ten. Number 9, Penn State, coming off of their first loss of the year. And this week, they're home versus an Indiana team that has surprisingly now won 4 in a row and are off to their best start in over 25 years. Mark, Indiana's quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. is out for this year with a shoulder injury, but backup Peyton Ramsey has played well this year. Penn State, off of that loss, Mark, maybe the bubble bursts a little bit when you have that first loss, or do you come out and put the pressure on now? 14.5-point favorite. I'm liking Indiana here, but what are you thinking?
I am with you here, Dave. I think it's the former, not the latter, when you talk about does their bubble burst a little bit, or do they come back looking to fight for the season here in this one? Coming off of that first loss of the season, I actually expect a little bit of an emotional letdown and a little bit of a slow start for the Nittany Lions. When you look at Penn State, yes, they have one of the top run defenses in the nation, but guess what? Indiana likes to throw the ball to the tune of almost 310 passing yards per game. I think Indiana will be able to stay in the game. Penn State certainly will win the game, but I think when you look at the number at 14.5, I like Indiana to be able to cover more than 2 touchdowns.
I'm with you. And Ed, another Big Ten battle coming up here with 8th-ranked Minnesota playing number 20 Iowa in the fight for the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy. Minnesota knocked off number 9 Penn State last week. Penn State was 4th seed last week, so that's a big deal. They haven't been ranked this high since 1962. Meanwhile, Iowa is trying to bounce back from a 2-point loss at Wisconsin last week. It's a 3-point favorite against the Golden Gophers. Ed, you know, Minnesota is on quite a roll right now, and though they're not really in the discussion for the national championship and the playoff, but the one thing they need to keep doing is winning. Can they do that here?
Well, if they go undefeated in the Big Ten, I think they're worthy of making the college football playoff. And something, too, when it comes to Minnesota, yeah, they got off to a shaky start where they were almost fortunate to win some of the games they did at the start of the season. But they have evolved significantly. And I think sometimes we forget in college football that these are young men we're talking about, and guys can naturally evolve and grow better. Teams are not the same at the end of the season that they are at the start of the season. And as for Iowa, one thing that has been consistent, they just haven't been scoring very much. I mean, look at the total in this game for a Big Ten contest, including an undefeated team. You should expect that total to be a good bit higher given the resumes here. And so because I don't necessarily trust Iowa's offense here, I think Minnesota can win outright.
All right, we talked about a lot of top 15 teams right there, but coming up, I'm going to ask both Mark and Ed which top 5 team will not cover this weekend and hear their picks on that. But right now, let's check in on the Heisman Trophy and look at the line next to LSU quarterback Joe Burrow. He is now -700. Last week before the Alabama game, he was +150. Ed, you see the rest of the odds on your screen. There's a lot of football left in the season, so anyone besides Burrow to win it is going to be a huge price. But, man, I mean, I said to myself about halfway through the Alabama game, just give him the Heisman now. But -700 is a huge number.
It's a huge number, and I don't know what the point is to actually invest in that unless you bet a ton of money in there and you're trying to get sort of a small return. But, you know, for the rest of us who may put a couple of dollars in bets like this, I mean, I still think Jalen Hurts has a chance to win the Heisman. I mean, certainly, I think in some ways he's putting up more efficient numbers than Joe Burrow. It's just Joe Burrow's resume in terms of who he's beaten. That's going to be really, really tough to beat. But there may be a reason why Joe Burrow's odds may go down a little bit, and that might be my little teaser for later in this show.
All right. Well, whether you like futures bets, game bets, prop bets, it's all available on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app, and we'll even give you a free $25 to place your first bet. Here's how to get the cash. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up for an account using the promo code MOREWAYS25. You'll get a risk-free bet up to $500 in site credit and an additional $25 free bet. So make sure to sign up for a FanDuel account using the promo code MOREWAYS25. Plenty more to come on FanDuel's More Ways to Win. We're recapping our picks for the Thursday night game between the Steelers and the Browns. And stay with us for our best bets of the day. We're back in 2 minutes.
Right here. Oh.
Can you
do that here?
Of course. Now I can bet the game on FanDuel Sportsbook anywhere in Pennsylvania. But is the pig allowed? You mean my service hog? As long as they rent her shoes.
FanDuel Sportsbook is now available everywhere in Pennsylvania. Join today and get a risk-free bet worth up to $500. Visit FanDuelSportsbook.com. FanDuel Sportsbook, more ways to win.
Sometimes a trip to the casino is not in the cards.
You have gas, there's tolls, there's traffic, there's parking. And what is a resort fee? I think everybody wants to know what a resort fee is. I'd rather just stay and play at home.
With Betfair Casino, you can play anywhere in New Jersey. No long drives, no hassle.
You just can't beat the convenience.
I've downloaded the app. It's fun. It's quick. I can play anywhere in New Jersey.
Playing on Betfair Casino, I save on tolls, I save on time. It's great.
With over 400 casino games, you could be playing your favorite games in 3 simple steps. Step 1. Sign up at betfaircasino.com and get $10 free for joining. Step 2. Make your first deposit and we'll match it up to $2,500. Step 3. Join the thousands in New Jersey playing for real money online.
It doesn't matter, how much we're betting. It's just the excitement of it. The adrenaline starts to flow.
Join the fun today at betfaircasino.com. Try it free.
Do you want to bet the next race and don't have a TVG account? Get the TVG mobile app and sign up. It's fun, easy, and it's TVG. I'll show you how it works. When you bet the horse that wins, you win money too. With the TVG app, select your horse, bet type, and wager amount. Place your bet and watch the race live. Download the app and sign up now, or go to TVG.com. Join now and get a risk-free bet up to $200. TVG, your best bet.
Welcome back to More Ways to Win. Let's recap the Thursday night football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers and that revamped steel curtain defense head to the dog pound to take on the Browns, who are coming off an emotional last-second win against the Buffalo Bills. Pittsburgh's been red hot of late, though. Winners of 4 straight, and their defense has been the catalyst for that, holding opponents to under 17 points per game. Mark, the Browns are laying 2.5 points at home. Remind us who you like.
I like the Steelers here, 5-1-1 against the number in their last 7 games. They're also 5-1 straight up, since they're an underdog here in this one, getting 2.5 from the Browns. That number could tick up to a field goal, by the way, by the time we get to kickoff tomorrow night. I will take the Steelers, and the way that their defense has been playing, I think their offense has enough, especially if you get James Conner back in the backfield.
Ed, a lot of people were wondering why the Browns were favored last week at 2-6 over a 6-win Buffalo Bills team, and it proved to be the right line because they got the job done. And once again, they're favored at home against a winning team here. Does that number seem right? Which way are you going to go?
Well, I can understand why the line it is where it is, in large part because I think home teams on Thursday Night Football tend to be a better bet overall. But I like the Steelers here. I mean, Cleveland's offense, they get heavily penalized. You put Baker Mayfield, a young quarterback, in a situation where he has 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and that's going to be tough for anybody, much less someone like him. And if things are so heavily concentrated into a couple of receivers, you can play solid defense and pretty much limit any and all options for Baker Mayfield. And so I think the Steelers are going to do that. I trust Mike Tomlin in this situation in terms of building an infrastructure around Mason Rudolph. And I think the Steelers can cover the 2.5.
When we had Jim Sonis on earlier, and he was showing his graphic with all the players
a lot of
for
Browns.
that game, at the top it said stud Baker Mayfield. I've been saying that all year. This is his final chance to prove that he is a stud, because if he does not beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm done with you, Baker.
Didn't you say the Browns were going to win 9 games?
I said they're going to win 15 games.
15 games.
15 and 1 or 14 and 2.
I was a little off.
I have been wrong, but this is his final chance to make me right. I'm going to go with the Browns. All right, switching gears to the total for this game, which is right at 40 points. Ed, what are your thoughts on this number?
Well, Baker Mayfield's ELO points have him around an average quarterback in the division. Mason Rudolph, several points below average. Not to mention both gunslingers rank in the bottom 20 in passes that are play action. And so to me, to win in the National Football League, play action is absolutely critical. You have to fool your defense. And neither quarterback really has been able to do that too much. And so I'm expecting a low-scoring game. Give me the under.
All right, the under for Ed. What about you, Mark?
Remember, I think it was about 6 weeks ago when Pittsburgh played the Chargers. That was also a national spotlight game. And it was Mason Rudolph with a lot of short little passes to James Conner to get him into space and then let him get some yards after catch. I think you're going to see more of that in the game coming up tomorrow night, because the Browns defense has a tendency to really follow one way when you try and hit the run game. But I think that you can get Rudolph involved with Conner in the short game. I'm actually going to go over here. If you look at their averages, Pittsburgh averages about 21 a game. The Browns average about 19 a game. That puts you right on the number. But because of the national spotlight in a short week, I see some turnovers, points off turnover. Then you can go over 40 here.
That might have even been the week that Doug Hodges stepped in and was throwing some dinks and dunks.
Well, and they also went to the Wildcat with Jalen Samuel.
Yeah, they've done what they needed to do to put points on the board. So
it's worked.
You're going to say over, Ed's going to say under. Well, there are also a ton of fun prop bets for this game available on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So let's talk about some of the more popular ones that are listed right now. Ed, let's start with you, talking about how many touchdowns are going to be scored in the game in total. The number is 4. The over is -140. The under +116.
So earlier I said I'm thinking push because I have a 20-17 final, which means each team scores a couple of touchdowns. But if I do have to pick, I'm going to go with the under just because of the higher payout. And I'm expecting a low-scoring game. And I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these drives stall.
The drives aren't the only things that stall.
I was going to say, how was that for timing right there, Dave?
Mark, what about you? Under or over?
I look at this game, and I would say over the 4 touchdowns. Again, I told you a moment ago, I'm on the over in this game as a total of 40. So I think that clearly both these teams have 2 touchdowns in them, but will there maybe be a defensive score? Could Mason Rudolph throw for 2, and then maybe you have James Conner run for 1? So I would say over 4 touchdowns. And again, I'm like Ed. I think it's right at about 4, but I'll take the over here in this case. I think you have a better chance of winning your money.
All right, Mark, how about the team to score first? The Steelers are even money, while the Browns are -122. Who gets the first points on the board?
There's probably a reason there's a little extra juice at -122 to take Cleveland in this situation, playing at home, short week. I like Cleveland in the way that they looked against Buffalo last week in their first 2 drives, cashing in the first time with a Jarvis Landry touchdown. I think you see a similar script here in this game, so I'll take Cleveland there to score first.
All right, Ed, back to you. We're going to talk the first half spread. Cleveland is -1, -110 for both sides here. Who do you like that first half?
Well, in a low-scoring game, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a tie right at halftime, which means that the Steelers would cover at +1. Keep in mind, Pittsburgh, they place a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which means even if Baker Mayfield strikes first, gets the Browns off to a 7-0 lead, don't be surprised if he doesn't score too many more times beyond that or get too many chunk plays beyond that.
Well, let's talk about a win that a bet you can win with your feet. Mark, you're our soccer guy, so we're going to finish up with you on this prop. Talking about field goals. Over, under 3.5. The over is -110. The under is -116.
I'm going to go over here. And by the way, I love it when you talk a little bit of football incorporated into our football. I think in this situation here, as Ed just mentioned, you probably are going to see some drives that stall out around the 30, 20-yard line, and that means an opportunity to put one through the uprights. I can see both teams having success in the kicking game in this one, so I'll go over 3.5 total field goals on Thursday night.
All right, let's get back to college football now as we previewed some of the best matchups of the weekend a little bit earlier in the show. Now, we're taking a look at the top 5 teams in college football as far as the playoff rankings go and who they're facing this weekend. Mark, you're going to see the matchups here and the spread right next to it. Some pretty big numbers. So give me one team on this list that you think is the most likely to cover. I mean, we're talking anywhere between just 2.5 points on Georgia to as many as 52.5 points on Ohio State.
Well, first of all, I would never want to go to that Ohio State game because look at that huge number at 52.5. Not saying that they don't have the ability to cover. We've seen big numbers covered by the Buckeyes this year. The other one that I X out is Alabama. After losing to LSU, I think you're going to feel sorry for Mississippi State at the end of the day. I am zeroing in on Wake Forest and Clemson. Clemson 7-3 against the number this year, but Wake Forest has actually had good success in big games this year, so plus 34.5. The other thing to remember is Clemson will put in their backups once they get a sizable lead in the second half. I think that's an opportunity either for a backdoor cover for the Demon Deacons or even just to stay within that 25, 27-point mark for the second half.
Okay, so I think I asked the question wrong then. So you're saying the team that won't cover is Clemson, but the big underdog that will cover
yes,
is Wake Forest.
Of the top 5 ranked teams, I think Clemson is the team you zero in on that will not cover on the weekend. Yes.
Okay, Ed, let's come to you and tell me which one of these big favorites that you think is susceptible.
I actually have 2. I'm going to start right at the top and say that LSU's not covering against Ole Miss. I'm always concerned about teams that play after Alabama. LSU, for that matter, if you play them one week, then the following week, you may be physically beaten up. There may be the psychological toll, the emotional argument. Even though I don't like it, I think it does pertain to that LSU-Alabama game. Even when you score 46 on Alabama, you're still beaten up. So I think Ole Miss covers there. And then I look at Penn State and Indiana. Like the Hoosiers here, in terms of success rate, Indiana is actually better at rushing and passing. Michael Penix Jr., Peyton Ramsey, better PPA per play numbers than Sean Clifford. Stevie Scott III has a great offensive line blocking in front of him. Not only can the Hoosiers cover, I'm going to pick them outright.
Ed, the Penn State's not even in the top 5. They weren't even on that.
Do you color between the lines, Ed?
They dropped to number 9 last week after losing. But I'm with you. If we're going top 10 teams, we both like Indiana as well. So now all 3 of us like Indiana. All right, let's head to the hardwood now, where there are just a few more NBA games on the schedule for tonight. And we're going to be running our fast break offense, putting 24 seconds on the clock. That's all you get, guys. So Mark and Ed, you have that much time to give me your picks and some analysis. Mark, I'll start with you. Grizzlies at the Hornets. The Hornets are a 1.5-point favorite with the total 225.5. Who you got?
I'll take the Grizz here, coming off of a big win at San Antonio. They're a better shooting team. They're a better rebounding team. Jay Crowder is getting hot, and John Morant is filling in nicely as a rookie. I'll take Memphis.
Look at that. 12 seconds to spare. You did very good. Ed, San Antonio at Minnesota. The Timberwolves are laying 2 at home. Your 24-second clock starts now.
Spurs seem to do things inefficiently, like settle for mid-range jumpers more than just about anybody else. And they like to wind the shot clock all the way down to 2 or 1 seconds, which is probably what I'm going to do here. Somehow the Spurs still rank 7th in offensive rating. DeMar DeRozan may be the best player on that team with a marginal offensive elo. They're still at 500. Minnesota isn't too much better despite Karl Anthony Towns. I think San Antonio can win this game outright.
Oh, he just avoided the shot clock violation. Mark, we're going to finish up with you. The Raptors are getting 3 points on the road at Portland. The total, 218.5.
Well, Portland looked awful last night in their loss to the Sacramento Kings, so now they go back up at home to Moda Center where they'll play host to the Raptors. The Raptors are severely dinged up. OG Anunoby picking up an injury the other night against the Clippers. No Kyle Lowry, no Serge Ibaka. Yes, they have Siakam, and he can fill it up, but I don't think it's enough in this situation. Portland is much better at home, and they'll cover that number.
Oh, snuck it in also. Well done. All right, we have just a couple of minutes left, so this is the part of the show where we give you our best bet of the day. So let's go around the horn, get each of your thoughts. Mark, we're going to start with you. Give me your best bet and explain why. It could be anything.
I'm going back to the NBA again, usually in my wheelhouse, and I'll go back to the Philadelphia 76ers. It's a number that is at 3 right now. It could go a little bit lower with concern of maybe if there's some rest for Joel Embiid in this one. But the Magic are just an awful team. They don't shoot the ball well, particularly from 3, where they're only at 28% on the season. Vucevic, yes, he can fill it up, but there isn't much else around him. There's too many weapons when you look at the 76ers. They learned something from losing those 3 games to teams like Utah and the Nuggets in a recent road trip. I think they have learned a lesson, and I think they win on the road in Orlando tonight easily.
Ed, you've been known to come with some off-the-wall stuff. What do you got today?
Not so off the wall this time. I'm just looking at the over-under in terms of the Spurs-Timberwolves game. Pace of play is huge when it comes to over-unders. Spurs are surprisingly effective offensively without true superstars. Also play a faster pace than normally what you would expect from Greg Popovich. Minnesota should also be pretty reliable when it comes to scoring. I love the over 227.5 here.
All right, I'm going to go to the Charlotte Hornets laying the 1.5. Memphis 0-5 against the spread, following up a straight-up win. I think they bounce off of that and lose to Charlotte. All right, take that information and all of the picks that we gave out during this show and use it to your advantage by placing a bet on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app. And you can get free money just by signing up. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Sign up using the promo code MOREWAYS25, and you'll get a risk-free bet up to $500 in site credit and an additional $25 free bet. So make sure to sign up for a FanDuel account using the promo code MOREWAYS25 to take advantage of this free money. That's a wrap for this edition of FanDuel's More Ways to Win. Thanks to Mark and Ed for joining us today. Remember to catch Ed's podcast podcast called Hazard Play on iTunes and Vocal app tomorrow.
Mesothelioma. It's all we do. With 9 offices across the country, we are large enough to take on big corporations. There is no risk.